Good morning, sixth graders. It's Mrs. Reid, and we're going to go through some examples of a persuasive template. As you look through this, you may pause it, work on fixing yours with your team before we partner edit with different groups reading to each other. When you look at your introduction, make sure you are starting out strong. Remember, this is not just a report. You don't want it to sound like an encyclopedia. This is a persuasive speech, so you need to have that enthusiasm that we showed and modeled, and so that you saw an example of what you need to start out with. So when I read my introduction, I want to start out right strong. Without a doubt, we will convince you that Toronto, Ontario is the best place to live. Toronto is Canada's largest city, located in eastern Ontario on the coast of Lake Ontario. Remember, in that introduction, we said you needed to give a location and you needed to make sure that you named your place right away. Start out strong. Don't use a lot of words. Try to get to directly where you're talking about and directly what you want to say. So edit your wording as well. Go through. For the attention grabber, part B, Toronto is world famous for its theater district, second only to New York's Broadway. People have traveled from around the world to see the Phantom of the Opera performed on stage at Blue Night Theater. Notice right away, start out strong. Toronto is, name your city, world famous for. You want to say this attention grabber is something it's well known for, it's world famous for. Or for the Whitehall, we use the example, Tree City just won Tree City Award if I'm going to talk about the trees. Make sure it's just one or two sentences. It's something big that they're very known for, like Traverse City with the Cherry Festival, known as the cherry producing capital of Michigan or of the United States. Make sure you start out strong with the place, not we're going to tell you about or one of the things that they are famous for. Start right out with Toronto is world famous for its theater district, so that you're not going around the wording but getting directly to what you're trying to say. The next part are your credentials. This is where you're convincing the audience that you know and you have actual information, true factual information. Based on research and evidence from National Geographic, World Atlas, and the experts from Frommer's Travel Guides, Toronto is absolutely the best place outside of the United States to live. You want to give a few examples of the sources. My sources were National Geographic, World Atlas, Frommer's Travel Guides, and I called them experts to convince. That's the persuasive language. You want to say based on facts from, based on research from, based on evidence, and just one or two sentences. I have one sentence there, and that's enough for those credentials. And again, that's just going to be said. There won't be any slide. And choose the best resources, your top 3 resources. Your 5 criteria need to be the 5 most important things about choosing a place that we would live. They also need to be criteria you have researched to back up, to support. So for example, for letter D, a clean environment, a fair government, a productive economy, a similar culture, provides public services. Sorry, I'm messing it up as I'm trying to read it. Provides public services. So these can be things like the education. This could include transportation for movement, the buses, the city libraries, internet service if it's not available in every home, that there's some way the government provides it, like at the library here in Whitehall. Pick criteria that you have evidence to support. For the main presentation, start out again strong. The natural environment of Toronto, Ontario really pulls people to live there. I've used a geography word. We talked about the push-pull theory of migration. Get as much geography in there, that's where you're going to get points. Your geographic knowledge, your evidence based on geography. Although Toronto is a large urban area with over 4 million residents, more geography words. We've talked about what the opposite of rural and urban. We've talked about population density, so giving those facts. The city streets are free from litter and garbage thanks to the success of public service programs teaching school children to care for their environment. You need to find real programs or actions that the government, the communities are taking, not just saying they have clean streets, but giving that evidence as why. So they have programs, public service programs that are teaching, and you need to find that in your research. Citizens in Toronto enjoy clean drinking water thanks to Lake Ontario. There's a source for the clean drinking water, a clean environment. Lake Ontario also provides many free public beaches, which are enjoyed during the warm summer months. So this all has to do with, I need to make sure I stay on the topic of that clean environment that we talked about back here in our list of criteria. So number 1 was a clean environment. Number 2, a fair government. Another important reason, make sure you transition your speech, and you'll probably switch to another speaker. Make sure that they come in with a transition. You might have to look up transition words. Another important reason to move to Toronto is the fair parliamentary democracy government. As part of Canada, Toronto enjoys fair, regular elections. We talked about what of the government would be important. Do not sound like an encyclopedia. You're speaking, and again, you're not going to be reading this. You have to be able to say this for the representatives that make their laws. Toronto is the capital of Ontario's provincial government. I didn't just say Toronto is the capital city. I told what it is the capital of, the province of Ontario. Canada's national government provides residents of Toronto with free national health care, free quality education that matches the U.S. and test scores, and the protection of a strong military. So I gave real criteria of how it is, why it is a fair government, these free services, and the education proven with the test scores that it equals or matches the U.S. And I can find those in our research, in our sources that you researched. The main presentation and these 5 that you write are going to be the majority of your points. And remember, we spent 6 or 7 days in class researching to find this information. You still can go out there, and if you are missing some support or evidence that you need, you can still be finding it. You have until Wednesday. This needs to be done so that you can practice when you come into class on Wednesday. In the final parts of your speech and of your template, the conclusion, as clearly stated by our research, Toronto, Ontario is the best choice for living in the Western Hemisphere. As an urban cultural city, it offers residents many features that will enrich your life, such as their world-famous theaters. So go back to that best example that grabbed their attention. And I can't just say it offers residents many features. I need that example. The theaters are the example. You need to check your sentences, and do you have real examples? And the very last call to action is simply a sentence asking them to remember to vote for your location. And you need strong language. We seriously implore, we urge you to vote for Toronto as our new destination or as the place to move. So you need to come up with a sentence that really strongly urges them to vote for your destination. And that's your template. So today you're checking that, editing, and revising.